Section 2.4 on statistical graphs. So this is just basically one example after another of different types of graph, one example of each. Dot plots. What you do is you take numerical information like ages or something like that, and you put, well, here's my example, the ages of students in the class. And what you do is you just make a number line and you put a dot above person's age. So for example, you start with this 18-year-old, you put a dot. A 20-year-old, you put a dot. 22-year-old, where's 22? There you go, another dot. And as you do this, you'll then sort of see the distribution. So when I look at this, I see that there's two 22-year-olds. One right here and one right here. So that's the dot plot. They're pretty simple. Stem and leaf. So this is something that I use all the time when I give back exams in class. I then write who got 90, not who, but I wrote the scores that were in the 90s, the scores that were in the 80s, etc. So that's going to be my example. Suppose these are the exam scores. So here it is. These are the people in the 90s. These are the people in the 80s, 70s, and 60s. So the way that it's read is that somebody got a 90 right here, a 93, a 94, etc. So for example, here's the 99, the highest score, and these scores over here are in order. So an 83, an 85, so there must have been somebody that got an 89. Here it is right here. The good thing about the stem and leaf plot is that if you had the stem and leaf plot, you could put together the numbers and relist them like this. 60, 65, they would even be in order too. So there is stem and leaf plots. Next, a Pareto chart. So this is if the categories are not numerical. In other words, it's not just ages or grades on exam or something like that, but the categories are, for example, the categories here are the car, the rent, the utilities, the food. Then the information happens to be money, but the categories are not numerical. The categories are the car, the rent, the utilities, etc. So then what you do is you just make a bar graph, and usually they start with the tallest so you can see what the person spends the most on, $600 a month for rent, $400 for childcare, etc. So you just make the bars, go up to the dollar amount. Keep in mind that it starts at 0 so that it's not distorted, and then just try to make the bars the same size. I mean, as far as width goes, and then they go up to the dollar amount. And for a pie chart, I'm sure that everybody's seen a pie chart before, and I'm going to use the same numerical data. So in order to make the pie chart, what I need to do is figure out approximately how big each category should be. So I would take the car, for example, that's going to be $300 out of $2,000. You'll see that that is 15%. Hey, I just saved 15% on car insurance. Kidding. 15%. So 15% of the pie should be for the car. So what I did is I then went to rent, which with my trusty calculator I found out is 30%. And if I went down and straight over, then that's 25%. So I went down and a little bit over like that. And then I did the same thing going this way, down, and then this direction, because then this over here would be the same as this rent, so that means this is $600 worth. So then I split that for the food and the car, 300, 300. And then for the child care, I tried to make it look a little bit bigger than the car because it's 400. And then these two, the space that was left, I tried to split it evenly because they're 200 apiece. The pie chart for this particular class doesn't have to be 100% perfect. I'm not going to measure it or anything like that, but it should be a decent rendering of the information. And here's the last one, scatter plot. You probably did this in algebra. It's just there's an x and a y-axis, and you go over where x is and then up to where y is. So this data was collected by one of my students in a previous stat class, They were trying to figure out what contributes to people paying more for car insurance. Is it their gender? Is it their age? How many tickets? So here's just a little bit of the information. So we've got ages. You can see that they interviewed fairly young people. And how many tickets they had in the last 3 years, because it's the tickets in the last 3 years that affect how much you're going to pay for car insurance. So then we do what's called a scatter plot. So this is just the x and y axis. So over here, whatever column goes first, that's going to be the x's. So you put the ages down here. And then the y axis will be right here, the number of tickets. And then you just graph them. So 24-year-old had 1 ticket. So that's this person right here. 24-year-old with 1 ticket, etc. Then just make the nice little dots and we'll see if there's a pattern. Later on in the semester, we'll have quite a bit more data, and then we'll see if the data creates some type of pattern like a line or some other type of pattern, but that's something else to look forward to later. All right, see you soon.